Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to the back room at the branch, and welcome to the first annual Blue Billies Fine Literary Presentation. Or what do we call ourselves?
First annual Fine Literary Performance.
It's great to have everybody here. You're probably wondering what this trailer is doing on the set. And you're probably wondering what a Blue Billy is. We started off calling ourselves the Blue Mountain Writers Group. We were kind of inspired by those hills that roll out south from Alto Pass. And it sounds so respectable, right? The Blue Mountain Writers Group. That lasted about a minute. And we very quickly degenerated to the Blue Hillbillies. And then from there it was a shortfall to the Blue Billies, and that's what stuck. So, my sister's snorting. She and I are snorters. I already got a snort out of my sister. I don't like that. I shouldn't laugh in the mic. So, the Blue Billies is a writers group, and we are dedicated to expanding and experimenting with the crafted word. We want to get the words up off of paper and into performance space, and kind of play and have fun with that thin line that exists between theater and a reading and musical performance, and just kind of have fun with it. So sit back and relax and just, forget that we have slaved for days and months and years over these words, and that Hillary has forged this backdrop from the forge of her will and out of nature's most unyielding material, cardboard. The kitchen is open until 9, and in honor of our performance, which is an homage to local trailer trash, we have a white trash special tonight. It's called White Trash Surf and Turf, which is sardines and hot dogs. Vegetarian, of course. Where am I going here? So turn your cell phones off. Why don't I introduce the people who are on stage. This is Dave Schultz. Dave lives in Naperville with his daughter, Scout. And honestly, it's a wonder that they're here tonight. They woke up yesterday morning to 4 feet of water in their basement. That was yesterday morning. So it's kind of amazing, and they're real troopers to even be here. Most people know Dave. Dave's been around a long time playing music in this town, and been in a million bands, but we're not really here to talk about Dave's music tonight, although you'll get to hear some of it. Really,
I knew she'd bring that.
yeah, I know, it's a big surprise. But we're here to talk about Dave's writing. Dave's a pretty incredible writer and has been nominated for a national literary award called the Pushcart Prize for a story he wrote called Colt 45 that was published in the spring 2012 issue of Fifth Wednesday. They haven't picked the winners yet. I think they'll probably pick in May or yeah. So keep your fingers crossed for Dave. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he won it. Scout is Dave's daughter. She's 14, and she'll be performing original songs tonight. I'd say the fruit didn't fall far from the tree. And she is a lovely young lady. This is, I'm kind of blocking her. This is Hillary Chandler. Hillary's an incredible artist. I said turn those cell phones off.
Don't make her mad.
You never want to be in trouble with me in the long run. Hillary's an incredible artist, an amazing actress. You've probably all seen her in plays at the Cloud Theater. She stole the show at Steel Magnolias last summer. She is quite something. She's been a big help to us in terms of blocking and direction. Then there's me. Most of you know me from running this place. But what you might not know is that I've been writing for about 10 years. I started off writing stories from my kind of bust out white trash childhood. It was a little bit like a David Lynch movie. Real cast of characters, and you'll hear about some of those tonight. Yeah, right now I'm working on a historical novel that's based in Cobden in the 20s called King. A story, something that happened in the farmhouse that I live in. So that's a little bit about us. Before we get started, and we'll start in just a second here. Now, I'm getting Thank you.
Nosy.
I want to thank the people who aren't on the stage. We have a Blue Billy here tonight who's not performing. She's taking time off to write her dissertation, whatever that means. And so Manji Melinda Yeomans, there you is. And, John Cotter is doing lights and sound for us. He just started a couple weeks ago. I went to Lauren McLean gig and he was doing such a great job on the sound. So we got to chatting because he flies ultralights and I'm a pilot. I was like, oh my God, I know you. So anyway, he's kind enough to jump in at the last minute and help us. My husband, Dean Diami, he's got a camera in front of his face. He's obviously taking pictures right now. Make you look good, honey. And he recorded the music that John's playing.
I also performed it too. I performed, recorded it, and produced it, and burned it on a CD illegally.
Am I forgetting anybody? Hamid. Yeah, Greg Wendt is videotaping the performance tonight, and I'm sure it'll be on YouTube, and we'll be blackmailed the rest of our lives. So that's enough about the background stuff. Now, the what? Oh, you know, we made a chat book. There's a little booklet that we put together of what we're reading tonight, except that for time's sake, Dave is reading a shortened version of Clan Girl, and this is the full version. It's probably double what he'll read. It's a great story. So that is available as kind of a souvenir chat book. We're requesting a $2 donation just to cover printing. If you can do that, that'd be great. What else?
Let's roll, kiddo.
Okay. Where to start? All right. Dave and I were talking the other month about Hank Cochran. We love Hank Cochran. Hank Cochran said he wanted to be the Ernest Hemingway of country music. He wrote some amazing songs in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I Fall to Pieces. You know, the songs that you've never heard of Hank Cochran are the most amazing ones. Jamie Johnson just released a tribute album to him. We were gushing about that. I asked Dave if he'd ever written any Cochran-like songs, and he said he had, but that he didn't usually perform them, which was kind of got my curiosity. So he said, well, Dave, you're a big boy. Why don't you tell people?
I'm big. Notice how the microphone's so much higher than everybody else. Well, Hank Cochran uses a lot of really unique imagery, and that's one of the things that I like most about really hardcore country, the imagery. I mean, they just really are able to focus in on these just beautiful, very vivid scenes. I mean, they're almost like photography, street photography. And I really like that stuff, but sometimes, if you're going to get the real nitty-gritty that makes a great song or a great picture, it sometimes rubs people the wrong way. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with Brad Paisley. He just released a song called Accidental Racist. That's it. And it's with LL Cool J. Go figure, right? But anyway, he made some statements. And actually, I wrote a song several years ago that it's similar to that. And I think mine's a little more blatant and kind of pokes out a little bit more, but I really like it. But sometimes when I play this song, it's a little misunderstood. So, hopefully I'm not going to insult anybody by this song. It's about a guy who allows himself to be lured into a relationship with a girl who's a racist. But it's like, she's so damn hot. It's just like, he's okay. Yeah, you're right, honey. So this is what actually started. This eventually became a short story. This song is called Clan Girl. She lives in a trailer behind her mother.
Country Dad.
Who watches her kids when she's too drunk? And she flies the stars and bars Chanel, 10 of her Buick. Keeps a 12-gauge sawed-off pump inside the trunk. Well, she boiled up 3 good hot dogs for dinner. And she wrapped them in slices of Wonder Bread. And she cut the vodka with that good old cherry Kool-Aid. Took the clippers out and buzzed the fuzz right off my head. And then we took a drunken stroll down by the graveyard. And there was crosses, they burning in the night. She took me by the hand and said, Dave, do you understand just how proud I am of being white? And I'm in love with the little Klan girl. Won't I know what's dream on of a snow white world? She's a little scary, but just as hot as she can be. Well, I tell you, man, that's okay, KK by me. Well, the truth is, I ain't so much of a bigot. I had me colored buddies in the slam. They sure did dig my home style, and we burned a lot of chronic. And we'd get wasted and make fun of the man. But I das't not tell my honey baby, for fault and flaw she'd find in me. It would break her heart, and our worlds would rip apart, and her brother, he would hang me from the tree. I'm in love with the little Klan girl. Won't I know what's dream on? Whoa, snow white world. She's a little scary, but just as hot as she can be. I tell you, bro, that's okay, KK That is your favorite song, isn't it, honey?
I don't think so. No.
What is your favorite song?
Folsom Prison.
Kids got taste, okay? Let's try it. Want to do it? Want to try it? You guys sing on it? Just a little bit? You know what? We're supposed to be doing originals, but it's so nice to fall back on the classics, right? Well, I heard that train a-coming, rolling around the bend. I ain't seen sunshine since I don't know when. Well, I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and life keeps dragging on. Well, I hear that train a-rolling on down to San Antonio. You got the second verse?
Sure. Now when I was a young boy, my daddy told me, son, always be a good boy, don't you never play with guns. Well, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die.
One more.
Now I hear that train a-coming, I hang my head and cry.
Well, if they freed me from that prison, man, that railroad car was mine. You could bet that I would move to Dad just a little on down the line. Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I want to stay. And then I'd let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away. Let's wrap it up. That was pretty good. What do you got, kid?
Well, yeah.
But you've never been in a bar, Lane.
No, I have never been in a bar.
I've never heard that song in the bar.
No, I have never been in bars before. Yeah.
Well, it ain't a bar, that's for sure.
We started going to bars when we were, I don't know, 5? We spent a lot of time in bars when we were kids. And, drum roll, please. And here's a story I wrote about that time. It's
Step
called
up to the
7 Ups
mic.
and Slim Jims.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you. I'm not used to a mic. All right. Because they were readily available in bars across the country, 7 Ups and Slim Jims were the mainstay of our childhood diet. When Mama and Joe rolled up at some roadside tavern for a long night of drinking, the 3 of us kids would make a night of it as well. We knew this was going to take some time, so we'd hunker down and make the best of it until we got so tired, keeled over in a red plastic booth, smelled like somebody's butt. Old men would give me and my sister quarters to play the jukebox. Robert Mitchum's Thunder Road was our favorite tune. It was a song about a son who runs illegal liquor for his dad and dies in a car wreck trying to outrun the cops.
Let me tell the story, I can tell it all, about the mountain boy who ran illegal alcohol. His daddy made the whiskey, son he drove the load. His engine was they called the highway Thunder Road. Sometimes went to Asheville, sometimes Memphis town. The railroads chased him, but they couldn't run him down. Each time they thought they had him, the engine would explode. He'd go by like they were standing still on Thunder Road. Thunder was his engine and white lightning was his road. Shine, flash, fell his face. The law they stole, they November 1st, on the 1st of April, 1954, that romance.
Turn around. All right, nice people. This is my sister. This is one I was up there dancing with. I came all the way down from Wilmington just to do that with me. All right, hang on, get your breath. All right. We had more air back then. Roads, alcohol, and car wrecks were something we could identify with. My sister and I would rock and roll on the cracked linoleum floor, illuminated by the glow of the jukebox. We had our little moves worked out then. Sometimes at a wedding reception we could fall right into it. Slim Jims fueled our childhood evenings. We'd stand at the bar and order them, just like adults ordering drinks. And we would wait. And wait. And wait. And wait. Wait until Mama and Joe were good and drunk, had spent all the money, and were ready to pile back in the car. Then down the road we'd go, careening towards a destination unknown, until they were too tired to drive and they'd pull off the road and we'd sleep. Mama and Joe in the front seat and us kids in the back. We had our clothes piled on the floorboard, which made the back seat kind of like a little bed. No sheets or blankets, just a coat to pull over you if you got cold. I was small enough to fit in the back window, so often I'd sleep up there. It was kind of like having my own little room. You didn't fit up there. Many a night I would awaken, though, because of the cold. My hips would ache miserably from the dampness that had descended and was laying in a pattern on the glass just above my face, and I'd crawl down to join my brother and sister for warmth. To this day, if I get cold at night, I awaken with my hips aching, and a flood of memories washes over me. Mama, Joe in the front seat, the world filled with pink mist, not knowing where we are, beauty and softness mixed with despair. Dave, did a song ever provoke a story from you?
Funny you should ask. I'm too cheap to get new copies. Wa-da-da-da-da, lo-de-do-de-do. I'll find, here we go. As I was saying, I wrote that song, Clan Girl, first, and then I wrote the story. And I did it because there was just so much there. Again, like I'm just so in love with imagery, and it just knocks me out. And so this is the story. Clan Girl. Sissy Ann Campbell was red on the neck and clamped smack to the bone. Man, Sissy was hot. I met her 3 days out of Vandy, the prison farm out to college. I was released straight up. My rebel ways cobbled a trouble road through the wilds of the Illinois correctional system, and I did every damn day of my 7 months. But it worked out. When they freed me, I was free. Didn't have no PO to report to, or some curfew loitering at the end of my day, and I sure didn't have to worry about being ambushed by a surprise drug test. Probably best that way. I have authority issues, and in time, a reincarceration initiated by an inevitable parole violation would have been my fate, no doubt. The original plan for my housing had to be amended. I was supposed to stay with my mom. She had a queen double wide. But then she came down with the cancer, and my sister needed to move in to help out. Me and Cammie, my sister, we don't get along, so staying in the double wide was not in the cards. Out of desperation, I moved in with my cousin Cicero over in B-Town. He lived with his grandma, a stout woman by the name of Good Christian O'Keefe. Good, or GC, the church folks slurred the initials together so it sounded like a proper name. She made me up the bed on a screened-in porch. I mean, it was all right, better than sleeping in a ditch, but there wasn't no air conditioning, and the central south was being hammered by a heat wave. I bought a box fan for $17. Spent the first few days of my freedom reading old sci-fi and drinking Dr. Pepper. B-Town wasn't much of a place. There were 6 churches scattered evenly over the village's tiny plat, and in the center of it was a forgotten town square filled with boarded up out-of-business buildings. East of the square was Kirk's, an auto parts store, and going west from there was Rural Route 14. That was the hot spot. Out on the rural route, just about a half a mile from the square, was the Gas and Go, B-Town's only gas station and convenience store. North of that was Ruby's, a broke-down, wore-out old honky-tonk. Twice a day, stretch my legs, I walked down to the Gas and Go to refill my 64-ounce Super Gulp. It was just past noon when I walked in on that third day. Sissy wasn't back. She had the cooler door swung open, had one foot propped up on a shelf. Take it from a guy who's been behind bars and has put some serious hours in the magazine-inspired self-gratification. The girl was porn star beautiful. Her long tan legs poked out of cutoffs. Her broadless, curvy womanhood stretched the fabric of her sleeveless black Slayer band tee. With pouty pink lips, short golden hair, black shades, high cheekbones, she was XXX camera ready. Well, I come around the corner and there she was. Out of politeness, I should have focused in on the drink machine or the bags of jerky that filled the racks to my left, but I couldn't. I couldn't look at anything but her. I froze abruptly, stood awkwardly. I was speechless, hypnotized. Her raw stripper appeal was profoundly undeniable. Breathing became an unnatural act. Seconds were lost in an unaccounted manner. When I came back to myself, I knew much to my embarrassment that she had to have noticed me gawking. We were but 2 feet apart. Still, them black lens sunglasses allowed me the possibility that she hadn't. Another second passed. Her head tilted slightly and she said,
Take a picture, it'll last longer.
for once in my fucked up life, I was halfway slick. Can I? Ah, smart ass. Shocked 'cause I'm usually not clever at all. She turned her head and looked at me full on.
Can you what?
Take a picture. She snorted, then chuckled.
If my brother was here, he'd have took a shot at you for talking to me like that.
Hell, I've been shot at for less. What's your name? She didn't answer. She just looked away, shaking her head, smiling. The back door of the store opened, just down from where we were, and the skinny clerk walked in. Anything? He said. Get your foot out of the cooler and close the door.
It's hot, Curtis.
She answered him. It ain't my fault you got no air conditioning.
I'm buying something.
Well, get it up to the register and quit letting all the cold out of my cooler. He said it hard, then glanced around the store. Where them damn kids of yours?
They're out in the damn car.
She answered back just as hard, then looked at me.
What in the hell are you looking at?
Ain't you never seen somebody in love? She groaned, took her foot out of the cooler and snagged 3 bottles of Mountain Dew off the middle shelf. She let the door snap shut. I hadn't moved an inch.
Do you ever get laid using that line?
I ain't never used it before. She started towards the counter and I followed her as far as the drink machine, started filling my cup. Curtis rang her up and she dug in her bag for change.
I don't know you. You're not from here.
She said to me, her nose still poked in her bag. Nope, I said, I just got to town. I'm staying with my cousin.
Cicero's jailbird cousin? I heard about you. You're a wild boy.
I ain't all that. She paid for the drinks with a few wadded bills and some change.
I'll judge for myself.
What do you mean by that? I asked and I walked to the counter with my soda. Hey, you want to hang out? She didn't say nothing. She just looked at me as she backed out of the store, easing the door open with her bottom. $1.28, Curtis said as I watched her get into an old Buick. A tiny rebel flag flew from the antenna. I spread $2 out on the counter. "Who was that?" I asked him as he made change. "I ain't in the information business," he answered. Over the next few weeks, I'd see Sissy around. I saw her at the Gas and Go. She wore past me a few times in that rusted out 73 Century with the busted headers. Then I saw her at Sam's Club grocery shopping. I was tagging along with Good for something to do. Sissy had 3 kids with her, all little blonde babies, white and pink and dirty as a pack of respectable toddlers could get. As we met in the coffee aisle, I nodded and said, "Hey!" But she seemed close to that friendly gesture, and my greeting floated like a treeless leaf up and around and got mixed up in 1,000 other words blown around that store. This was no wound to me. I'd been slighted before. I figured that's just the way it was. But as we made our way past each other, she stopped with kind of a theatrical jerk and stared at me over the top of them black glasses.
You stalking me?
She asked. I was expecting to be ignored. Shoot, a howdy might have floored me, but being accused like that, I couldn't do nothing but blurt out the first word my brain would turn loose. "No!" I squeaked. I sounded like a little like a poodle. The corners of her full pink lips rose just a little.
Well, why not?
Damn, right? I mean, that's fucking hot. Don't you guys think that's hot? Well, I thought it was hot. Hot as hell. Ain't no girl ever flirted with me like that before. And I ain't complaining when I tell you I was hooked. That's the end of that section. There's more of that one.
There's more of that. You know, Sissy sounds pretty trashy to me.
I don't know. She ain't all that trashy.
I know you've been out with trashier, I know.
Do you have a story about a trashy gal?
Well, no.
Do you have a story about a good gal?
Your stories are about trashy girls. I have a story about a good Southern girl, but she did kind of look trashy. Here, all right.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah, you sit down. Let me
Okay.
read something. There's more trash. You're right. I just have to admit it. All right. This is called Aunt Trudy and Uncle Walter. Growing up, Aunt Trudy was the person I loved the most, and Uncle Walter was the person I hated the most. Given that they came together, you didn't get one without the other, which made it kind of tricky. Aunt Trudy was a living saint with a checkered past. Her first husband had been a tattoo artist, and they had traveled with a carnival in the 30s. Whenever they'd get in a fight to make up, she'd have to let him put a tattoo on her. Well, I reckon they had a lot of fights because Aunt Trudy was covered in tattoos. Which was ironic considering my Uncle Walter, her second husband, was a Southern Baptist preacher. At a church picnic in the middle of an Oklahoma July, Aunt Trudy would be wearing a long skirt and a long sleeve blouse because she wanted to hide the swallows that flew up her legs and the butterflies that fluttered up her arms. But she couldn't hide the stars emblazoned on her knuckles. I thought her tattoos were the most exotic thing I'd ever seen, and if I asked her to show them to me, even though she was a preacher's wife, she would. Lord knows what other tattoos she had on under those clothes. We never saw Aunt Trudy in a bathing suit. When we were swimming in the river, there she'd sit, fully clothed on a blanket under a tree visiting with Mama. Aunt Trudy loved us kids, and she really knew how to show it. She bought us Jesus coloring books and jacks that she stored in a little cloth bag she'd made herself. She had a pink flamingo mirror in her bathroom and an elf cookie jar on top of the refrigerator that was always loaded with cookies. She never had kids, always wanted them, and Mama was rather conflicted at times about whether she wanted us or not. That's one way of putting it. At those times when Mama was leaning towards not, Aunt Trudy'd get her hopes up that she'd get us. They'd even drawn up adoption papers a couple times, but Mama'd always back out of the deal at the last minute. Once we were living in the slums of East St. Louis in a Victorian apartment without a stick of furniture in it, right across the street from a school that we could not get to without getting beat up. We were the only white kids in that whole neighborhood. Mama had a teenage greaser boyfriend named Johnny who wore his shiny black hair and a DA and always dressed in black from head to toe. I reckon Mama was at least 20 years older than that kid. They say with a younger man, you can raise him the way you want him. Johnny would play hide and seek with us kids. Given that he was closer in age to us than to Mama, I guess he still enjoyed playing. Or maybe he was just being nice to us, because that's a way to endear yourself to a woman who's got kids. I can still remember how thrilling it was to hide in the closet with him, how he smelled. I suppose he was my first crush. Well, Mama got real drunk one night and threw all her clothes into a sheet, tied them up hobo style, and called Uncle Walter in Oklahoma and told him to come get us. But by the time Uncle Walter arrived the next morning, Mom had sobered up and she didn't want to give us to him. Uncle Walter told her that'd be the last time she'd ever do that to them, and it was. She just couldn't jerk them around like that anymore and get Aunt Trudy all worked up. They'd been through it too many times with us. After all, it was Aunt Trudy who'd rescued us from the Tulsa Children's Home a few years earlier, not my mother. But Aunt Trudy didn't get to keep us that time either, because when Mama found out she'd taken us, she came and got us. It's probably better that Mama didn't let Aunt Trudy have us, because we would have gotten Uncle Walter in the bargain, and that would have been hell. Uncle Walter owned a garage in Henrietta, Oklahoma that Mama claimed she set him up in with what was left of her divorce settlement from my Swiss father. On the side, he refereed wrestling matches. We'd sit right down in the front row and think it's the most exciting thing we'd ever seen. Back then, we didn't realize it was fake. One day, lightning struck a tree that Uncle Walter was fishing under, and he felt sure the Lord had called him to preach. Which in the South is all it takes to be qualified. This is true. Every word of this is true. I didn't even change the names. Look, he quit refereeing wrestling and became a Southern Baptist preacher. He was of the pulpit pounding fire and brimstone variety. Just like the wrestling matches, we sat right down front for that. During the end of his life, Uncle Walter quit preaching, became a policeman, which was his eventual undoing. He was killed spectacularly in a line of duty in a roadblock that they had set up to stop some armed felon. Well, they stopped him all right, but before they could kill him, he killed a bunch of cops. Uncle Walter being one of them. She's laughing. It's her uncle. It made the national news, and Aunt Trudy even got a letter from President Nixon. When I heard he was dead, honest to God, I was glad. I figured he had finally got what was coming to him, because as far back as I can remember, Uncle Walter was a molester. He was the master of the public sliming. If we were swimming and he invited me to jump off his shoulders, While he was helping me get up there, he'd stick his finger up inside me while Mom and Aunt Trudy talked on the blanket under the tree. You think I would have yelled, but I was too ashamed and paralyzed with fear. We'd act like nothing had happened. On Sunday mornings, on our way out the church door, Uncle Walter would stick his tongue in my mouth as I gave him the obligatory goodbye kiss. Again, I froze in fear and shame. All this occurred amidst a chorus of, "Thank you for the fine sermon, Brother Henry." I was pleased when I heard he had been gunned down. And to this day, I have a real problem with authority figures. It's pitiful to admit, but I was sure glad he was dead. Years later, when I finally told Mama what he'd done, he was her brother after all, she told me that she should have known he'd, quote, try something like that because he'd, quote, tried that with her too. It was hard to understand why, knowing what she knew about him, that she had so often sent us over there to stay with them. Didn't she know she was placing us in harm's way? But maybe it was Aunt Trudy's begging for us, combined with Mama's feeling burdened by us, combined with the denial of what had happened to her, that kept that crazy pattern in place for so long. I sure hope it died with him. As for Aunt Trudy, she lived on long after Uncle Walter was gone. She tried to have her tattoos removed, but it didn't work. Just kind of broke up the stars into bits, but they were still there, little blue blobs on her knuckles. She remained the calm, peaceful person she'd always been. One Christmas, I was visiting my sister Niecy when Aunt Trudy's annual card arrived. As a special treat to me, Niecy said I could open it. We stood there in the yard as I tore into the envelope to find not a card, but Aunt Trudy's obituary, which had been sent to us by a distant relative. Niecy cried, but I smiled at Aunt Trudy's timing, letting us get the news when we were together so I could comfort my sister, who'd always been pretty high-strung. That felt really good. To the end, Aunt Trudy was special. She had looked rough on the outside, but she was a saint. Whereas my Uncle Walter had tried to look like a saint, but he was the sinner. I think it's important to tell heart stories like this. You know, I spent my whole life hoping that nobody'd ever find this out. And there's so much freedom in just telling it. And, you know, this sort of thing happens to so many people, men and women. So I just thank you for letting me share that.
What do you want to do next?
Where are we going from here? Read the second part of Clan Girl, Dave. Yeah, bring us up a little bit.
All right.
I can do that. Changing gears. Me and Sissy started getting along good. For the next few days, we was chatting and flirty whenever we bumped into each other, which as often as we could work out. Somewhere in there, we decided to go on a real date, and that Friday evening, walked over to her place. Her white trailer sagged behind her mother's old coal company shack, underneath two gigantic catalpas and one ancient walnut. As I came up in the yard, a half a dozen dogs, mixed hounds mostly, came tearing out from under the house, barking and baying, their bony tails beating the wind. At the same time, Sissy came bouncing out of her trailer, shooing the dogs and grinning. A drink or two ahead of me, no doubt. She was in a loose, super short, white and green sundress with saggy spaghetti straps. Spaghetti. I'm coining that word. She handed me a plastic yellow cup. Well, you passed the dog test, she said. The dog test? The cup held a strong mixture of vodka and cherry Kool-Aid. It went down pretty good. What, you got them trained to sniff out narcs? Narcs and niggers, she said. Do you like my earrings? I made them myself. A tiny noose expertly crafted from brown wax string hung from each ear. I was gonna dangle little nigglets from them too. I measured up a couple of the kids' littlest action figures, but they was too heavy. They made my ears hurt. She laughed like she was talking about unicorns and rainbows. What the fuck do you say to that? Yeah, my hair was up. I knew what I should have done. I should have walked my ass right out of that yard. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because just when she said what she said, she put her arms above her head and stretched, arching her back. And oh my sweet Lord, when she did that, that short dress came up. Way, way up. Like many a fool before me, unvarnished lust convinced me to abandon my golden self. Somewhere in me I found a plastic smile and tried to focus on that bliss that would be mine once I took that pornographic goddess into love's embrace. Sissy smiled back at me in such a way that made me feel like she knew exactly what I was thinking. My mama's watching the babies, she said. She'll keep them all night. All night? That's good. I commented on her mother's generosity. Sissy propped her hands on her curvy hips. Oh, so you're just assuming that's an invitation. She was good at tripping me up, and I stood dumbly. But then she laughed. My mama always takes the babies on Friday nights. Oh, your night to how? Well, Sissy said, answering, but then from somewhere behind her a rough voice broke in. Friday's meeting night. I spun to see a tall, broad, shirtless man covered in tattoos. Jim, Sissy began, this is my brother Dell. And then to the shirtless man, Dell, this is my friend James. He's Cicero's cousin. Hey, I said, nodding. Dell bobbed his head in a way of hello. He stood with his arms crossed, his legs apart, staring at me. James did time up and he interrupted her. Vandalia, I know. Sissy turned to me with pride. Dell does his homework. You're kin to GC, Dell asked, his tone patient but demanding. Sissy answered for me. Nope, he's a Conklin. Dell was older than Sissy by 15 years. He leaned on the door and tilted his head slowly, focusing on an unturned field east of the trailer. You Herman Conklin's boy? Herman's my dad's younger brother. So your dad is? Aldo Conklin. He turned and walked into the shadows of the trailer, and I noticed the handle of the automatic tucked in the back of his camo shorts. Didn't he hitch up with Mary Beth Eubanks? Sissy took me by the hand and I answered as we walked up the cinder block steps into the trailer. Yeah, that's my mom. You know the Eubanks? Know 'em enough. That's some good stock, son. Calling me son. That normally would have wrinkled the shit out of me, and I usually don't sit still for no interrogating either. But this cat was 6'4", wide as a Peterbilt, and looked to be just as strong. There was a lot of muscle underneath that detailed layer of prison ink. Besides all that, he had a Glock in his britches, and his sister showed me her underwear. It was an unusual situation, no doubt. Blood will tell. Dell's voice had become reverent and still, like he was reciting a biblical passage. What do you think about that? Blood will tell. He asked, repeating the phrase. Sounds logical, I answered, not knowing what else to say. He nodded. It's an old saying. You can still hear it in forgotten places by those who've been left unspoiled. Blood will tell, he said again with gentle veneration, then tarried on the thought a second too long, smiled at me mechanically like he'd remembered himself. It's all about the blood, you know. Yeah, I said, agreeing with him, thinking it was wise. There was nothing in his demeanor that suggested he appreciated debate. Did you ever go out with a good gun dog? Beagles, I answered. That's a hound. Oh, okay. A gun dog. I'm talking about a retriever or a pointer. I guess I haven't. Well, if you had, you'd seen the power of blood, Del said, glowing just a bit. That's right, son. Pointer points. It's instinct. Ain't got to be taught how. That's what it does. Just like the border collie herds. All that knowledge and know-how right in the blood. Ain't that something, I said. Sissy leaned over the beige counter. Jimmy, you ready for another drink? I really didn't need one, but I was glad to be off the subject of blood. Okay. I finished what was in my cup and handed it to her. I was going to say something about how Kool-Aid made a pretty good mixer, but Sissy cut me off. I'm making hot dogs. I never asked you if you liked hot dogs or not. I like hot dogs. I like the one with cheese inside too. Did you ever have them? Yeah, they're good. But I have to consider how they're processed. As a mother, I have to put my kids first. Being a parent's a full-time job, I said, thinking all along that squirting some Velveeta into a vat wouldn't add or detract from the amount of processing a prepackaged hot dog went through. Hey, I said, you want to go to Ruby's later on? They're going to have a band. There's a meeting tonight, she said. A meeting? I asked. She didn't answer. Del finished a blue ribbon and tossed the can into the garbage. Ding, I said, now that's a three-pointer. Del ignored me too. I know I have the pages here someplace. I'm just mixed up. Like that's the first time that's ever gonna happen. Del ignored me too. He pulled the Glock out of his britches and wrapped it in a shirt I believed he carried for that purpose. I'm gonna pick up the keg, I'll see you down there. He stepped out and trudged down the steps. Sissy smiled and walked towards the refrigerator. He likes you. A truck started out on the gravel drive. How can you tell? Oh, I can tell, but you better be nice to me or he'll beat your ass. She laughed. I did too, but I don't know why. Sissy was at the refrigerator putting ice in my yellow cup. That was in Vandy, she said. He did 2 years there and 3 in Stateville. I was just little then, just in grade school. I missed him, but he wrote me lots of letters, so it kind of made up for it. That's too bad, I said. Oh, on me maybe, but he liked jail. Gave him structure is what he said. She took out the vodka out of the freezer and poured my cup a third full. Thing is, Del said, thing is, Del thinks he's my daddy. She opened the lower section of the icebox. Not literal like. Our daddy died in a wreck when I was 3. I don't hardly remember him, but I've been told he was a Christian and lived like a white man. She paused and looked at me, then started again. Anyway, since then, Del being the oldest and me being the youngest and the only girl, he started looking out for me, you know, like a daddy does. She took out a plastic pitcher and filled the rest of my cup with Kool-Aid. And that's our story. She took a piece of ice out of the freezer, ran it down her throat and across her chest. I'll be glad when this heat spell breaks. She took out a second piece of ice and ran it across my forehead. I'm hot, she said. Are you hot? She ran the ice down my cheek and neck. I put my arms around her waist and pulled her close. She did not resist, nor did she return my embrace. Her right arm rose, bent at the elbow. Her palm went behind her head. Her left arm curved gracefully downward, slightly backing away. She arched her back and pushed her breast into me and placed her face inches from mine. Our eyes locked. She put her lips lightly to mine and held it for 1 sweet second. The kiss ended. Our lips parted. But she did not pull away. Her face lingered inches from mine and she whispered, "Your hot dog ain't getting no bun." Embarrassment began to rise. I'm gonna have to wrap that thing up in Wonder Bread, she whispered. My arms fell away. Sissy, however, did not pull back. She leaned into me harder. How does that suit you? Well, however you want things to go, it suits me just fine, I said and tried to pull all them loose ends together. However I want it to go. I like that, she said and looked at the digital clock on the stove. The meeting won't get going till 9. I'm going to stop dinner. And that's the end of section 2.
That's pretty steamy there.
What was going on over here? I had a notion that something was going on this side of the stage. I'm reading and
You have a lot of nerve, that's what's going on.
what's next?
Okay, here's what's next. All right, we're going to have to give the audience a chance to cool down now. That's a rather adult perspective on the sexes. The tool made a satisfying sound as it gripped the nut on the bottom of the engine. Kenny was laying on his back under the front end of the 58 Olds that was hiked up into a tree with a logging chain. His buddies, Butch and Jim, stood off to the side, double fisting it with a push in one hand and a cool in the other. Kenny and Jim still had the work clothes on, dark blue gabardine shirt and pants, white tube socks, round-toed black shoes. They'd worked a straight job all day, crawling under a house, installing ductwork, killing spiders and dodging snakes. Butch, you still sneaking around here? Asked Jim, thinking maybe Benita's gonna pop over to borrow a cup of sugar. Trying to learn how to work on cars from you two monkeys. Just because I paint them don't mean I know how to fix them, Butch shot back. Yeah, that all you're working on? All right, let's keep it clean, Kenny chimed in. That's my niece you're talking about. I didn't say nothing, Jim said. I'm just marveling at Butch's sudden interest in mechanics. Well, it is interesting, damn it, Butch said defensively. It might be, but it ain't half as interesting as chasing a skirt now, is it? Well, nothing comes close to that, I'll give you that. Come on, Jim, leave him alone, said Kenny from under the car. He's just a kid. Enjoy it while you can, Butch. That's right, you'll be married someday and that shit'll stop. Don't listen to him, Butch, he's just jealous, Kenny offered protectively. Jealous? What's he got that I ain't? Jim kept coming. Oh, I don't know. Youth, good looks, talent, sex appeal. Easy now, you're gonna make me cry. As they bantered back and forth, I stared at Butch. He did look different than Daddy and Jim. Mommy said he was easy on the eyes. He was leaner and sported a white t-shirt, jeans, and engineer boots. Although he's a lot older than me, he was a lot younger than them for sure. Benita told me that Butch was the drummer in the most popular local band, the Egyptian Combo. She was sure that just as soon as she got out of high school, he was going to be her ticket out of Southern Illinois. He looked like he was good to go, what with his dishwater blonde hair swept into a pompadour and black plastic comb stuffed in his back pocket. The late afternoon sun washed the yard in golden light, glinting off the beer cans strewn about, the rainbow puddle of crankcase oil, and the discarded engine resting heavily next to the oak tree. The guys had spent a week swapping out a 300 cubic inch engine for a 394. They knew a 371 would fit in a 58, but a 394, they were playing with fire. But hell, it didn't run to begin with, so what'd they have to lose? Baby, hand me a half-incher, Daddy said as he turned his head to look at me, his face and neck red from strain. Little flecks of oil dotted his face, but his eyes were kind, always. Let's get her cranked down and see if this puppy will run. I jumped to it, my eyes darting up the line of ratchets in the metal case. There was one I wanted, right next to the empty hole. Here, Daddy, I said, handing it to him, touching his greasy fingers as we swapped them out. I carefully plunked the 3/4 incher back in the right spot. Hey, Kenny, you know the difference between a vitamin and a hormone, don't you? Jim half hollered to Daddy under the car. the beer was kicking in. Hell, if you can make a hormone, you don't need a vitamin. We all laughed, myself included, but it was punctuated by Daddy saying, well, shit. What's wrong, Kenny? Can't get her in? Asked Jim. The guys laughed again. Try some WD-40 on it, Butch said as he squinted and sucked hard on his cool. Get her good and soaked before you bear down. No reason to bust your knuckles any more than you have to. What do you know about busting knuckles, little drummer boy? Jim taunted Butch. Son of a bitch, Daddy said as he strained one last time to free the bolt. Honey, hand me that WD-40. The can was conveniently lying in the grass. Here, Daddy. I handed him the can and sat down cross-legged in the grass next to the car. The car tickled my skinny legs, but I wanted to be half under there with Daddy to see what he was doing. Even though Mom and Daddy had only been married for a few months, it was the first time I'd ever felt protected by a man, and I craved the closeness of his sheltering warmth. Daddy was very different from the other men who had staggered through my short life. From the moment he met us, he acted like all he ever wanted was to be our dad. Something in him needed us, and we needed him for sure. I peered under the car. He had his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, exposing forearm muscles that strained and flexed as he fought the rusted Detroit steel. I was on one side of the car, and Butch and Jim were on the other. I felt as if I had entered for the first time the world of men. I breathed in their smells, tangy, sweat-stained shirts, lemony, foamy beer, earthy, moist tobacco, and bitter black coffee. Their world was different from the women's world, which smelled of Dove soap, blue Windex, red lipstick, and perm solution. Sitting in the grass, I was orbiting a different planet, a strange, alluring planet. I made myself small and still, a specky little thing, so as not to be noticed until I was needed. Spray, 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 pause, spray, spray, spray. Come on, baby, slide in there, come on. The veins in Daddy's neck bulged as he gave it one last tug. Yes, God damn it, yes, Daddy crowed as the nut dropped into place. Well, this calls for a goddamn celebration, Jim said with a grin as he popped another beer. Hallelujah. Mazella hears you've taken the Lord's name in vain. There's going to be hell to pay. Butch tossed at Jim as he sucked on his ciggy and pushed his slit pompadour back into place all in one motion. She's in the house of praise. She ain't going to hear nothing, Jim said with a chin toss. That's what you think. Women got x-ray ears when it comes to shit men say, especially their husbands. It's that wedding band. It's a receiver, man. They can Well, when you marry Benita, you better keep a sleeping bag in a doghouse, because with that mouth of yours, that's where you're going to be most nights. Well, ain't that the pot calling the goddamn kettle black? Will you two shut up? Kenny chimed in from under the car. I got enough problems without having to listen to you two lovebirds fight. Honey, go in the house and make us some bologna sandwiches, would you? Maybe you two can do something with those mouths besides talk shit. Well, hell yeah. We can eat, drink, smoke, and talk shit. That pretty much covers it, don't it? Butch said with a laugh. Not quite everything, Jim said with a knowing look. You missed a couple bases. But we'll save that talk for later. Honey, grab them chips while you're in there, Daddy said as I headed for the kitchen door. One of you geniuses want to have a go at it? 2 more bolts and she's in. Daddy slid out from under the car on the cardboard that he'd laid on the grass. Let me have one of them cancer sticks, Butch. I'm fresh out, was the last thing I heard as the screen door slammed behind me. Mama and Mazella were sitting in the kitchen at the red Formica table, nursing flat cups of coffee deep in conversations. A starburst light inspired by the atomic bomb burned dimly over their heads. They barely looked up at me as I walked in. being 10 years old gave me entree to new worlds. Mama, Daddy wants some bologna sandwiches.
Oh, okay, honey. Take whatever you want. Maisel, you want a sandwich? Shorty's making one.
Well, I wouldn't turn one down.
Mama, you want one?
Oh, don't mind if I do. Shorty's a good cook. Her Chungking Chinese food's great. With those little crunchy noodle things on top of everything.
I grabbed the bologna and mayonnaise out of the fridge, opened the bunny bread wrapper, and laid out 12 slices on the counter. As I spread thick mayonnaise on each slice, Mama spoke in low tones in the background.
I just felt this awful pain when I was going to the toilet. And I looked in the stool, and there she was.
Oh, Ray, you're kidding.
No, it was Kimberly. She was just 3 months old. She was just a bloody little clot.
Oh my God, what'd you do?
I didn't know what to do, so I just flushed her down.
Jesus, Ray.
I figured it was the same as burying her.
Well, I guess that's one way of looking at it. Well, what'd you tell Kenny?
I told him we lost Kimberly. What else could I tell him?
You sure it wasn't just a bad period?
I carefully centered a single slice of bologna on 6 slices of well-mayonnaise bread and topped each one with another slice of well-mayonnaise bread. You can't get too much mayo on a bologna sandwich.
No, I'm sure. You can tell when you're PG.
And I hadn't had a period in a couple of months.
Kenny was so upset. He cried. We had just got married and I know we wanted to have kids.
Well, you can always try again.
What? Mama was pregnant when she married Daddy? Daddy cried? I struggled to wrap my mind around what I was hearing as I stacked 4 sandwiches on a plate and grabbed the chips out of the cabinet. Trying to act normal, I put Mama and Maisel the sandwiches on 2 saucers and brought them to the table as Mama continued with her drama.
Oh, I don't know if I've got it in me. Denise and Kurt Neal ain't always so big. I might just stick to raising miniature dachshunds. You can get $100 a puppy.
They were on the... My sister's laughing because this is true. That's why she's cracking up. I'll wait till she regains her composure before I continue. They were on to the next topic, and I was out the door, relieved to be back into the late afternoon light and into the man world, where a different kind of energy bounced, not so frenetic, not so loopy, not so random. Men's energy was more of a deeper, low rumble. All 3 men were standing next to the car in a huddle, heads bowed as I approached with a plate of sandwiches. Here you go, I said, extending the plate to Daddy. The boy's hungry, Daddy asked, indicating that I should offer the plate to his friends first. Do a lip lock on this. Jim grabbed the sandwich, then Butch, and last of all Daddy, leaving the one on the plate for me. I set the plate on the car and opened up the bag of chips. Would you like some chips? I asked Jim. Sure, Jim said, sticking his hand in the bag and coming up with a fistful. Kenny, you got any more beer? There's one more 6-pack in there. Honey, I can get us 3 beers and I'll hold them chips. Okay, Daddy. Mama and Maisel were sitting at the exact same spot, kitchen table. Pulled the chrome handle on the fridge door as the light popped on inside.
Shorty, grab them pickles out there, would you? I declared Kimberly as a dependent on our tax returns this year. You get a $500 rebate with each child.
Couldn't you get in trouble for doing that?
Oh, they don't check. Besides, if she'd have been born this year, and that would have made her a dependent. So it's not like I'm lying.
The energy in the room sent my head spinning. Mama's reasoning was the craziest thing I ever heard. How could she flush a baby down the toilet and then declare her unattached? In my mind's eye, I saw a little tiny baby the size of a ping pong ball, swirling counterclockwise on the stool before it swooshed out of sight. I set the pickles on the table in front of them and grabbed 3 beers out of the fridge before the door slammed shut. Jim was under the car, knocking the last engine bolts into place when I got back outside. They slid in easily, what with Daddy having lined them up before. See, Kenny, that's how you gotta do it. It just takes pros touch. He taunted Daddy in a good-natured way. Yeah, you're a pro, all right, professional butthole. Daddy tossed back, but relief and satisfaction shone on his face. 10 days of hammer in hell was now complete. Let's get her down out of that tree and see if she'll fire up. Moment of truth, boys. Link by link, they unwound the chain and inched the front end of the car back to the ground. It's a whole lot easier getting that car out of the tree than it been getting it in it. Let's get some gas in her, Daddy said. I got a good feeling about this. I looked around for the metal gas can, but Butch already had it and was unscrewing the cap as he balanced the can on his knee. He pulled out the hose that hung into the can and tightened it into place, and he began to carefully pour gas into the tank. Daddy slid behind the steering wheel and began pumping the gas pedal furiously with his right foot. As Butch poured and Daddy pumped, I stood there next to Jen, and I felt every cell in my body go on alert. Would it start? I bit my lip and waited. That's all she wrote, Butch hollered to Daddy, keep pumping. Daddy must have pumped that pedal 50 times before he turned to us and said, okay, cross your fingers. I crossed mine on both hands, but I noticed nobody else did. Daddy took a big breath and looked straight ahead as he turned the key in the ignition. The engine turned over, but it didn't catch up. Daddy gave it 3 more quick pumps. Well, junkyard starter's good, Jim murmured to Butch as we stood there at attention. Pump, pump, pump. Pump, pump, pump. Then a miracle happened. The engine coughed and a puff of blue-gray smoke came out of the tailpipe as that 58-old sputtered to life with a roar. Loud and proud, it shat into existence. A huge smile spread across Daddy's face as he bobbed his head in satisfaction. Hell yeah, Jim crowed as he clapped Butch on the back. Listen to that bitch purr. Good job, boys, Daddy said. I couldn't have done it without you. The roar of the engine set off a tingly effervescence inside me, and I feel a little dance right in place as the thought flitted through my head. I bet you crossing my fingers is what did it. Dave.
What?
Do you want to do a song? Do a song.
Song?
Let's have a little song. You want to do a song?
You know, well, actually, yeah, let's do something. You know, I was thinking that cars is a big part of country music. Wrote a couple of songs about cars. I can think of a couple. But there's other things in country music that's very important. Drinking is really important. As far as a song Potter goes, but my favorite. My favorite is Death. That's right. Actually, I have a little bit of a reputation for being a little macabre. I'm a little proud of that. This is another song Joe swung. I don't know if anybody knows Joe, but yeah. Joe's been sponging off me for years.
He's here tonight.
He's here in spirit. Yeah, whenever I play, Joe's around. This is, I'm not going to tell you the title because I think it will be apparent But Joe recorded this for his, I think it was his Cowpunk album. He did down here several years ago. Sitting in jail, nobody throw my bail, 'cause I killed all my friends last night. It was a bloody affair, the whole trailer court was there, when I killed all my friends last night. Know what kind of pills I was taking. Suddenly, the party started shaking. I heard a hiss down the roar. I was home 44 when I killed all my friends last night. From Biloxi, they came out and got me. I combed my hair and went without a fight. To be condemned without objection, get the lethal injection. Yes, willingly I'll slip into the night. And maybe see my friends up yonder, and together we can sit and ponder. And life's about a little wine, drink like old times, before I killed them all last night. Yes, I killed all my friends last night. I'm doing all the same. You have, somebody should do a song that's not about that.
I have a song about drinking.
Another great country. Can you do it for me?
Yeah.
Please.
I think I can. About 30 years ago, when I was dating, I was going out with this guy, and I kind of got into it, and I realized, like, oh my God, he's a drunk. And I thought, I grew up with a bunch of drunks. I thought, how could I have missed this? Why didn't I see this sooner? So that really got me thinking, and so I wrote, I think I've written 2 songs in my life, and this is one of them. And it's called Why I Love the Drinking Man. I'm just going to sit here and sing. I'm not going to first. A drinking man will need you, somehow show he cares. He'll wrap his sorrow around you and pull you very near. He'll whisper, dear, I love you. He'll always be my friend. But someday you'll leave him if the drinking doesn't end. If the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end to us. I can't live with a bottle and everything it does. Your life is a disaster, and you wonder why I fuss. But if the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end to us. I've always loved drinking man, my father and my brother. And when it comes to choosing men, I'll pick one as a lover. There's something sweet and tender, like a little baby sparrow, that's written on the drinking man, drowned in sorrow. But if the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end to us. I can't live with the bottle and everything it does. Your life is a disaster, and you wonder why I fuss. But if the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end to us. They say that it's a sickness to love a drinking man. They say you can't help him, he'll only drag you down. But nice guys are boring, I like having you around. Yes, you can spend the night, dear, but you gotta understand that if the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end to us. I can't live with the bottle and everything it does. Your life is a disaster, and you wonder why I fuss. But if the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end to us. Yes, if the drinking doesn't end, it'll put an end.
Wow.
All right, so let us move to the third and final ass-kicking part of our story. It's a literal ass-kicking.
It's a good thing I'm not going to do another song, so I don't think I can follow that one up. I'm missing something.
Your glasses, perhaps?
How did you guys do today? Oh, here we go. Saw that in the movie. Drinks were drunk, food was consumed. In fact, she did use Wonder Bread instead of buns for my hot dog. We talked and flirted, a few times fell into deep, wet kisses that kept us lounging in each other's arms. But more than that, time passed, and at 8:45, Sissy pulled me out of my chair. "Come on," she said, "it's time to get to the meeting." And we took out walking through the field back of her house. It was near dark when we crossed a ridge into a dip in the landscape. A good crowd of people had formed, 200 or so. A ring of bonfires was burning, and jumpy golden flames made everything seem sweet. People saw Sissy and came to greet her. An overly tanned blonde in camel blouse and khaki-colored shorts was the first to reach us. "So, this is the new stud I've been hearing about." "No, stud couldn't make it, so I brought Skinny instead." The girls laughed. I shook my head and stuck out my hand. "Hi, I'm Skinny Jim. What's your name?" Blonde girl looked at my hand. "You don't need to know my name. You haven't spoken before, son." The girls laughed again. Other people came around. A few of the guys had shaved heads, wore old school combat boots. The good group was in camo,
and there was a few old guys with beards and fedoras and bib overalls that hung in tight, sweaty groups, rolling their own and drinking what looked to be moonshine. Despite their differences, everyone seemed to be getting along, and everyone was friendly enough to me. I was introduced a dozen times over as we pushed through to the kegs. At 9:30, a shush went across the milling crowd, and everybody faced west. That's when I noticed 5 figures in white robes and pointy Klan-style hats standing next to a little knoll. "Sissy," I whispered. She shushed me. One of the robed figures climbed onto the hillock, and he stood there until the crowd's murmuring dissipated. He raised his right hand above his head. In it was a Bible, a white cross on its black cover. He raised, on his other hand, a megaphone with a black cross on it. He raised the bullhorn to his lips.
Brothers and sisters,
He began.
we are at war.
"Hey, sissy, ain't that Dell?" I whispered again. This time she elbowed me and hissed, "Shh!" Dell continued.
That's right. War,
Blah, blah, blah. My attention started to drift. When people blab, my thoughts float and flip. Seems like anything can snag my attention. Of course, there has to be that other little thing immediately present. Right then, there wasn't much around. I was in a growed-over field. If you'd seen one field, you'd seen them all. I bounced my head to the right. There was a little group of skinheads over that way. One of the guys had a swastika tattooed on the side of his head. He had his arm around a petite skinhead girl. She had a mohawk and a Nazi SS insignia tattooed on the side of her head. She was in loose cutoffs, jack boots, and a t-shirt with a rebel cross on her. It read, "You got your ex, I got mine." She turned her head and looked at me. There was something in her expression, and perhaps I hung on that face a second too long, because the vibe changed, and I noticed that her boyfriend was looking at me, looking at her. For some quick damage control, I put my arm around Sissy and gave him thumbs up. He nodded like we had some kind of understanding and turned his attention back to Dell. The little skinhead girl looked at the boy, glanced at me, and then reconnected to the lecture. There was a sudden burst of applause. Sissy pulled away to get a better view of her brother.
That's right. Worldwide. Children of the light.
Dell was crowing high on that megaphone. Suddenly, that little mohawk girl was walked between Sissy and me. She stared as she passed. She had 2 red solo cups in her hands, was heading for the keg. I reached over Sissy's shoulder and took a cup, whispered, "Refill." Mohawk was pumping air into one of the kegs when I came up. "Here," I said, "I'll get that." I took the pump from her and started working it. She kept her eyes on her job as she filled the first cup. On the second, she watched me.
It's near empty, you pump, I'll fill.
"Thanks."
You Sissy's new beau
We came together.
that fell on with?
Yeah?
He's my husband.
So that would make you, Mrs.
You don't mind if I drink out of your cup, do
Don't look like you care what I mind.
you? You mind that I'm married?
What kind of a question is that?
That's the one I wanted to ask. Here's another. You mind that Sissy's married?
Well, she ain't.
She ain't with it now. Her old man's in the joint.
She told me she never married none of her exes.
Well, having kids together makes you pretty damn married.
I don't know about none of that.
Well, you know now. I just told you.
What's it to you?
Paula and Darnell. Am I off?
I don't know who Paul and Darnell is.
That's Sissy's 2 youngest. They're my brother's kids. I'm their aunt.
Well, Aunt Mohawk, it was nice talking to you.
My brother's locked up. Them kids is kin, and I have to keep an eye out for them, even if Sissy don't.
What's any of that got to do with me?
Well, if you're hanging around with Sissy Ann, you'll be hanging around them babies, too.
We's on a date is all. I ain't moving in. I don't want to be a daddy and no kids that ain't mine.
Boy, that's just what I'm thinking.
Like a well-oiled machine. I walked back to Sissy. The devil was still preaching. Let us embrace the ways of our forefathers, and let this symbolic light remind us of who we are, and in that keep us strong. But that said, Del took a torch from one of the bonfires and lit a cross. Everybody started hooting and hollering. I heard some guns going off. It was like the 4th of July. Half a second after Del lit the cross, loud black metal music started banging out of these heavy-duty speakers propped up on the cabs of a couple of pickups. When the music started, it was like a button got pushed. The core of the crowd exploded. Everybody started dancing. It was a crazy, violent kind of dance and looked like a damn prison riot. Sissy got whooshed up and pulled right into the middle of it. The girl did not hold back. She was all crashing and slamming and jumping. Looked like she was having a pretty good time. I finished the beer I was drinking and went for another. I decided that the kegs was the best place to meet up with Sissy, and I found a little patch of dirt not far from the well and went to work. I was there maybe 20 minutes when Sissy and Mohawk came out of that dark thrashing mob. Sissy was making a beeline for me. Mohawk was making a beeline for me. Sissy wasn't as sure on her feet, was being helped by her ex-sister in common law. I stepped up to greet him. How's it going? I asked. Fuck off, Sissy slurred at me. What? You heard her. Fuck off, Mohawk said. That's right. Fuck off, shit fucker. Sissy was drunk and a little cross-eyed. I kind of like that. But I couldn't enjoy it because I was under attack. What's going on? I asked, guessed that my conversation with Mohawk was being pounded out of shape, and that she, Mohawk, for the sake of her locked-up brother, was out to sabotage my romantic evening. Sissy's face twisted into an unpleasant scowl. You think you're too good for my kids? She held up her right hand and raised her middle finger. Well, fuck you, Jimmy Conklin. I looked at Sissy. This is bullshit. I never said nothing like that. I pleaded with her, but there was no crack in that wall of drunken hatred. No place for the light of reason to illuminate her dark mood. Mohawk stood with her hands on her hips, looking victorious, winning the battle I didn't even know we was waging. There wasn't much to say, but I was going to say something. I turned on Mohawk. Well, how much booze did you pour into her anyway? Sissy was back on me then. Don't you be talking to Loretta like that. You know what? You can back off. I became harder. This really pissed Sissy off, and she screamed now. Fuck you, Jimmy! With her screaming like that, the crowd started to form. I don't care how damn sexy Sissy was. There's just so much I'll take, and I was reaching my limit. Fuck you right back, I countered. Don't you cuss at her, Mohawk slashed at me. I'll cuss at any fucking buddy I want. Skinhead Mohawk's husband got into it then. Hey, cocksucker, that's my old lady. I spun on him. Get your old lady out of my damn face. Sissy's temper snapped. She charged at me with a series of slaps and overhand punches. I do not hit women. I covered myself as best I could, and I started retreating backwards. The ring of people that had formed around our screaming match offered no exit. And when I came to the parameters of our battlefield, I was shoved back into the match. This shove, however, sent me crashing into Sissy. And Sissy, as drunk as she was, wound up on the ground. This did not play well. A long ooh rang from the crowd. I scanned the faces for a glimpse of sympathy. There was none to be had. I was the villain, and Sissy was the angel. The cursing, moaning, drunk and dirty, crawling around on her hands and knees, looking, I'm sure, for a stick or a rock to bash my brains in, Angel. From my left, I saw a hasty party with this disapproving audience. I knew what was coming. Jail burst onto the stage. It wasn't a fight, it was a beating. Every blow he delivered was an explosion of agony. I cannot recall the exact events, but I do know I was knocked to the ground and pulled to my feet at least a half a dozen times. And that show ended with a beautifully placed kick to my nuts. Most nut shots end up unsuccessful. The kicker usually misses the target. Dell, however, rang the damn bell. I do not know if I blacked out officially. If there was any more to this beating, you'll have to get it from somebody else. The nut shot was my finale. When I had it in me to move, I got to my feet. I was aching inside and out. Dell had delivered a fine beating. I hurt appropriately. My face got the worst of it. I had a split lip and a good black eye, and a swollen cheek on the other side to even out my misery. My body hurt too, but not as bad. Being young, I still bounced good enough. But my heart, that's where I really suffered. My passion for Sissy had died. And that spot where that passion had burned so brightly was now dark and cold. Sissy would never be mine. That was okay. I wasn't missing her. Sexy as she wasn't special. She was just another redneck girl, same as my sister Cammie, same as 100 girls I knew. Nope. I wasn't missing Sissy at all. I was missing that frenzy of desire. I took a good guess as to where I was and started walking. The night air was hot, but fresh and rejuvenating. The more I walked, the less I felt like getting back to GC's on that porch. Just about a mile of hustling put me on the rural route, and I was happy to be out of the field. But now I faced a choice. On the left was rubies and a chance for adventure. On my right, the gas and go, and sleep, and tomorrow, and nothing. I've been out of jail 11 days. I've jiggled my pocket. I had $26, with no immediate prospects of getting more. Ruby's was a fine old room. That stank of spilt beer and cigarette smoke. The band looked to be a collection of local farmers that knew a lot of George Jones and Merle Haggard, though Toby Keith or Keith Urban could get squeezed out of them with a good enough tip. I sat near the elbow of the scarred wood bar watching the band, feeling almost good. Halfway through my beer, a shot got plunked in front of me. A blonde woman in camo shirt and khaki shorts took the stool 2 down from where I was. She raised the whiskey to me. Well, son, you took that beating like a full-grown man. She smiled, but not in a taunting way, then added, that Del Campbell's a mean son of a bitch, ain't he? I took the shot and raised it to her. No doubt, I answered, and we threw that drink back together. You ain't the first boy to get knocked around on account of Sissy, she said. And you probably won't be the last. What's that supposed to make me feel better? Well, I got the bartender's attention and bought the next round. And we sipped at these, and the band started playing an old Freddie Fender song. Hey, you want to dance? Yeah, I'll beat the shit, she said. Shoot. A little thumping can't keep the kid down. Come on, I said, holding out my hand. I think she might have been a little embarrassed to dance with a fellow as beat up as me, but she took my hand and followed me out of a dark space in front of the band. We joined a half a dozen couples in the dark and moved to the music. The singer was this old guy, 50 or so, but he was still square from hard work. His shoulders hung off his spine easy and broad, and his hips were narrow, and his hands were thick from gripping hammers and maybe the handles of long shovels. Thick as they were still nimble on the neck of his old guitar, and he played delicately. He played delicately. His face was lined and tanned, and everything about him spoke of coarse labor and cold physical reality. But as his eyes went from couple to couple, I saw in them life and faith and true belief in those abstract things of which he sang. Love and heartache, rambling souls that dashed desperate for freight trains rumbling in the moonlight, of the varied spirits of hard liquor that fingered the lives of the people they swept through. I had no doubt that this man was an acolyte of the songs he sang. I was pleased and lucky to have his blessing and his prayer upon me as I danced with this woman. Me and the blonde danced many more dances, and I spent all my money, and she spent a great deal of hers. At 1:35 a.m., the bar called last call. At 1:55, we got chased out. I walked her to a car, and we kissed, but it was no more than a goodbye, and I started back to GC's. It was still hot, and I took my time, wanting to savor the quiet and the dark. I was halfway around the square when I heard a car. A hot rod maybe, or Sissy Century roaring on the rural route. I stopped and leaned on a light pole in front of the old bank building. It was built of large gray slabs of stone, with just enough scroll work to make it special. It was the closest thing to grand this little town had ever seen. I wondered about all the people that hustled in and out of that bank, saving it up to procure a heart's desire. I could see them bustling across the old square. Desire, the single tiny flickering flame that guides poor souls through this world of darkness. I laughed at these escapades, wondering what kind of spirit I had conjured in my panic for Sissy. I went on then, done for the night. I could smell the leaves and blossoms stretching and blooming in the darkness, and there were cicadas and crickets singing in the grass, mosquitoes humming and bats swooping around incandescent streetlights. And as beat up as I was, I felt pretty good. The end. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the sound man, John. Hillary, that beautiful shot. I'd like to thank Dean for helping us out with the music. I'm sorry, I'd like to thank Greg too for the video tonight. Thank you so much. And now, I'm going to bug the hell out of you. Because that's what I do. This is another song that Joe Swank has stolen from me. You're saying, I know what you're saying, Dave, did you ever write a song that you did? No. This is another song about death. Well, down, and watch you write a happy song. Something about them blue skies that come along. Oh man, well, ain't you looked into the sky? It's full of poison, poison, poison. Go and die, die, die. You're going to the east and to the west. Tidal waves are coming up to drown our happiness. And fire's gonna fall from the sky, sky, sky. Tomorrow's light. down, 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 and why don't you write about true love? Something about the stars, the shine in love. Well, love can break your heart, my friend, and love will make you cry. Love can hurt so bad you'll want to die, die, die. Even with the blue into the east, into the west. Tidal waves come and go and drown our happiness. The fire's gonna fall from the sky, sky, sky. Tomorrow's life, we gonna die, die, die. Tambourine solo. This is the sensitive version. You all appreciate this one. Well, down and down and down, why don't you write about the Lord? Cause I hear that he's a-coming with his powerful swift sword. You know I read that Bible, some that book made me cry. The hero of the story, well, he died, died, died. Either way, into the east, into the west. Tidal waves are coming, gonna drown our happiness. And fire's gonna fall from the sky, sky, sky. Tomorrow's life, but we gonna die, die, die. Tomorrow's life, but we gonna die, die, die. Thank you so much for that. So kind. Guys, sing song. Want to count it up?
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. Cynthia has got a plan. She's gonna build a man, something like a Frankenstein. She's just killed 3 friends of mine. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. She has got a bloody axe, dishing out about 20 whacks. She takes all the good parts home, sews them up when she's alone. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. Get a trunk and lock her up, get my daddy's pickup truck today. Then we'll throw her in the lake, then we'll have a little wake, and then we all will get a break, 'cause Cynthia will be dead. Cynthia will be dead. Cynthia will be dead. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. It's now, it's now, it's now or never now. It's now.
Yeah, she's writing about dead folks too, all right? I'm sure that everybody knows this one, but I don't think we can end a trailer trash night without getting out to this song. You did not read the letter that I wrote you, and you asked me not to call you on the phone. But there's something, my dear, that I must tell you. So I wrote it in the words of this song. I didn't know God made homes, he talked angels. Well, I might have known you'd never make a wife. You've given up the only one who'll ever love you, and went back to the wild side of life.
As I sit here tonight, the jukebox playing, about the wild side of life. As I listen to the words you are saying, it brings memories when I was a trusting wife. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you wrote in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That has caused many a good girl to go wrong.
I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. Well, I might have known you'd never make a wife. You've given up the only one who'll ever love you. And just like Tammy, you broke the heart. Girl, you're not so nice. Jug and passed it around. My things in a package for its reason. White lightning. Well, the city slicker came and shit out tough. Give me a pull with that power stuff. We took a little drink and put it on down. And heard in the morning as he hit the ground. Awful exciting, Pappy's white lightning. Well, G-Man revenue was still
Looking for the place that could bring the stew. They were looking, trying to book him, but Pappy kept it cooking now.
Sally?
White lightning.
Here we go, baby. Well, I asked my old Pappy what he called the brew. White lightning said a mountain dew. Took a little sip from right away and knew. As my eyes bugged out and my face turned blue. Mighty pleasing, and Pappy voice pleasing.
White lightning.
Let's go, baby. Well,
Dreaming, revenue was too. Looking for the place that could bring the stew. They were looking, trying to book him, so Pappy kept it cooking that.
very nice, folks. This is the end.
Performances in this space and other writers to come forward and show their butts as well.